Howdy, howdy, and welcome to the Outside In podcast, where we discuss the latest in litigation support services. Today, we are talking to IST Senior Project Manager Sherry Godfrey about the keys to managing an efficient document review project. Welcome to the Outside In podcast. Where are you joining us from today?
I'm joining you from College Park, Atlanta.
Nice. Excellent. So today we have you on the podcast to talk about the tools and the people ISC is investing in to improve document review and make it more competitive and efficient. But before we dive into all of that, I was hoping you could just give us a little background on your experience in the managed review world.
I came to manage review kind of accidentally. I graduated law school and wasn't exactly sure what it was I wanted to practice, where I wanted to go. And I ended up joining a firm as a contract attorney in securities litigation. And from there, just continued one project after another within that practice group and some arbitration, but mostly securities litigation. They were looking to develop a permanent department in the law firm and stop contracting out through third-party agencies and wanted to hire directly. And I was part of that initial group that was hired directly with the firm and just built my career from there.
Excellent. So, what did you learn from being on the client side of managed review that's helped you now that you're on that party provider side?
I think it's very important to have a connection with the client and understanding exactly what it is the client wants, what's the end game. You don't really, I didn't feel like I had a full picture of that when I was a contract attorney with the firm. There was a more division of this is your role and this is our role, and you don't need to worry about all of this stuff behind the curtain. You just focus on this one aspect, and so it was a bit disjointed in that way. And management was distant from us. I think sometimes in your career, you have experiences where you feel like your managers are approachable and they're personable, and you're not inhibited in any way with it. It's an exchange of understanding and conversation. And in some environments, it's really not that way. You might be more apprehensive to ask questions or to get clarity just because it's kind of distant. But it's you're much more connected on the vendor side, in my experience.
Excellent. Well, I love kind of what you're talking about there because it led right into the next question I had where you were talking about you didn't know what that end game was. And I was wondering, what do you do to make sure you understand what those clients' goals are so that you can place the right attorneys on the right projects?
From the beginning, we get a clear understanding of what the client is looking for in the initial consult. That person provides us some context for the case. I'm sorry if you hear my dog.
Oh, no worries.
The client will give us some context of, hey, this is our problem at hand. This is how we like to approach it, and then sometimes the client has very specifically what he or she wants and the way they're going about it, and sometimes not. And then we may have to give our input and what we think is the best approach in reaching that end goal. But once we understand that, then that gives us some idea of what we're looking for as far as recruiting and how large the team should be, what kind of experience those people should have, and that kind of gives us the roadmap for focus.
I like what you were saying there, where it's a consultative discussion that they might be coming and saying, "Hey, this is what we want," but when you hear what they want, you're able to then interact with them and say, "Well, maybe it's this type of lawyer or this volume or
Right.
whatever to meet that goal." That's
Sure.
that's excellent. Um, Obviously, so key one is finding out what they want. Then, how do you find those correct review attorneys for those cases?
So we have a really large database of talented people with various skills and backgrounds. And once we know what it is we're looking for, then we'll work with our VP of National Recruitment, with Danica Thomas, and she will help us find exactly what it is we want. This is very privilege focused reviews. So then we may focus on people who have a lot of experience with privilege reviews, privilege logs, um, someone who has a litigation background or is familiar in that sense, and then we can find, exactly what it is we want. Do we want to focus on people? Sometimes the region you're in makes a difference. Do you want to stick with people in the eastern region versus working with folks on the west coast? It might be that because of the time difference, that provides some constraints with what our deadlines are. And so um, it could be regions of the country and experience, or a combination.
Excellent. So you've reached out, you looked at, and you found those right attorneys. The next key is making sure that they have the knowledge they need for that specific client to be able to efficiently meet their needs. So, what tools are you using to make sure they're trained on this specific case and specifically what they're looking for?
We have a data bank of their resumes and skill sets, and we can pull from that information. We can review their whole resume and what specifically the software they have experience with and whatnot. What's their background? There's a whole database that we can access and pull that information. And then we'll take a deeper dive and call those people and say, hey, we think we have a project that is very suited for you. I see you have a background in XYZ. Do you have capacity, and are you available to start on this date? And then once we work out those details, we'll invite them to join us for the project.
Excellent. When once they're on that project and everybody's reviewing the case, obviously there's going to be a lot of questions. There's going to be opportunity for discussion because while it
Sure.
sometimes seems like it'd be very black and white, you're looking for this on this document every time. That's not how it
Hmm.
works. So, how do you create an environment that's collaborative and that has the ability to quickly ask questions and keep moving efficiently through a case?
Usually, every project is going to begin with an initial consult with counsel and the whole team so that they can receive that overview of the case and the strategy directly from the client. And then, obviously, if there are questions after that discussion, then they can raise them right there in the call. But we'll also provide a space within the review platform where there can be a daily exchange of submitted questions, and then counsel will submit answers to those questions, and the team and the client team have the same access to this log. And it may be categories of questions that the team member can say, hey, I have a question about privilege. I don't know if this applies, but this is my question. Or I don't know if this is related to this specific issue. What do you think? I think it's related to this, maybe not. The client can see, oh, these are the questions that are submitted for the day, and they can go directly into the database and address those and say, yes, you're on the right track, keep going, good job, or no, this isn't really what I'm looking for, let's focus more on this. And then the whole team has access to that log. That's a whole separate view within the review tool, and the team members can access it at any time. So they know when it's updated and what's new as far as, oh, I think someone asked a question about that last week. Let me see if I can find something related to X. You could put in a search term and filter the question answer log and find what did counsel say about this. So it's really convenient.
Are you seeing the review tools, different advances in that, making it more efficient and quicker for attorneys to be able to find what they're looking for?
I do. I definitely think it's more efficient. I've been involved in projects and you did not have that tool available right there in the platform. And so maybe you're submitting your question by email, or there's a distribution email list, and you say, hey, I have a question about this. And then you're waiting on someone to respond to that question. And it might be several hours, it could be a couple days. You might have to email again. And it's cumbersome to try and track that information and what was previously discussed in an email thread versus something that's more like an Excel sheet that you can manipulate the way that you need to find if that was addressed or not. So I
Um,
think it's much more efficient.
and of course, with that efficiency is great, but it also comes with constantly changing laws and rules about what is
It
allowed
does.
and not allowed. And we want to make sure
Hmm.
that what we're reviewing is defensible. So, how do you stay abreast of all these changes so that we can provide the clients with the most efficient thing that's defensible?
Hmm. I think as attorneys and especially in e-discovery, we educate ourselves as experts in the industry, may attend continuing legal education seminars. There are resource materials that newsletter publications that discuss the most recent trends, and these are the latest practices in this industry. And a lot of them we're already doing at IST, which is fantastic. Or you may come across something in a publication and that handled a project in a certain way, and it was a little bit out of the box from what you've done before. And even in that instance, if it's something that, hey, we think that that's a good idea and that it would work, we'll implement it. So,
Excellent. So, beyond just the standard review tool, is there any specific software, tools, or processes that ISC utilizes to help improve efficiency during the review process?
um, not necessarily software, but I think we have our own processes that improve efficiency. We create workflows that um, organize the review and streamline it with searches that we've created,
Mhm.
search queries that you may run across the database that hey, you start to learn trends over the cycle of a review that I see people tend to categorize these documents as X and it's really Y. So you may create a search query that captures that, and then you can stay on top of it and make adjustments to those calls as you need to. Or um, the team seems to think that this issue is related to one and it's really related to three, then you may just reach out and have a quick Teams meeting or get everyone together, have a discussion, say what the issue is, and then provide the team an opportunity to ask questions that way and you can address them. Um, Sometimes, well, in other places, that wasn't necessarily available. You couldn't just organize a meeting with everybody and have a quick discussion. It was a more formal process, or we have to wait for so and so to schedule this conference call, and we'll talk about it in 3 days. That's not something that happens in the ISP environment. I think it's an added benefit that our contract attorneys, for the most part, at least right now, they're working remotely, and if you have internet connection, we can have a meeting. So
Nice.
it creates some urgency to the situation when you need it. If it's an urgent issue you need to address, you can do it right there.
Excellent. I wanted to dive in a little deeper in a couple things you said there. So, at the beginning of a case, when you sit down, you meet with the client and everything, that's where you start to create these workflows based off of best practices that you know from the past. Is that correct?
Correct.
Excellent. So, you talked about then being able to adjust those workflows based on trends. How are you analyzing to see when those trends are changing on the way people are coding documents?
So the review platform also allows us to track overturns. Say that we are conducting our own QC throughout the project, and the client team has the same access to the platform as we do. Oftentimes, they'll want to do some of their own QC just to make sure that the team is on point and yes, the team is capturing documents that we're interested in, or they're focused on the topics that we care about. They can go into the database in their QC and they might overturn something that the team members are saying is relevant, and it's really not. Well, we can see that on our end as well and say, hey, this issue is getting overturned and there's some disconnect here. Let's have a deeper dive and find out what that is. And maybe it's only one individual who's making that mistake, and then we'll just have a one-on-one with that person and give them some examples of their coding and what it should be. Or if that's a wider issue, then I think that's another instance where you meet as a group and say, hey, collectively, there's some disconnect in this concept, and let's talk about it. You all tell me what you're seeing and why you see it this way, and let me provide some clarity based on feedback I know that the client has given in overturning those calls.
Excellent. So it sounds like one of the real keys to making sure you have an accurate review is it's not, okay, we met with the client, they said this is what we want, and then in 18 days ago, here's your final product. But it's actively reviewing it, QCing it every day, asking them questions, and then making sure that they're engaged in that process throughout so that that end result is what we know we want based off of what we're seeing at the beginning.
Definitely. It's collaborative the entire time. We also have a customized report that shows the client team what those coding calls are every day. And really, it's gauged on how frequently does the client want to receive this information. Is this something that you want to receive in a daily report, or maybe you just want to see this 2 or 3 times a week? I mean, we can customize it based on their preferences, obviously, but the report is a good. It's almost operates like a dashboard. So if we have 5 buckets of documents, it's going to show them how many documents are in that bucket, how many documents of those are privileged, how many are not privileged, how many did we say are relevant, not relevant. They can see that at a glance in the report that we give them. And, if they see something that is off, or, oh, I see that we have this number of hot documents and that it doesn't seem like that would have happened, what's going on here? They could go into the database and look at all of those hot documents or communicate with us, and we can flip through them and see, oh, these are actually legitimate or they're not. And then again, that's an instance where, okay, do we need to meet collectively, or do we just need to meet with a couple of individuals and put them on the right track? But it's a good gauge into how the project is developing throughout the cycle, moving towards the end.
So one of your key roles as a project manager is running that QC, running those questions and those reports to make sure that every reviewer is being consistent on the work that they're doing. Is that correct?
Definitely, yes.
Excellent. Obviously, we've talked a lot about the tools and the software, finding the right attorneys to review the documents. But if you don't have consistency and you're unable to keep those attorneys throughout the course of a project, that creates other issues as you're bringing new people in and having to train them up. So, what do you do to keep those attorneys engaged and as part of the project the entire time?
To keep the attorneys engaged who have, when you're replacing people with new folks.
Well, I meant so that you don't have to replace them. How are you making
Oh.
sure those ones you got on are engaged and want to stay in part of that project?
Um, I think it's consistent communication with those reviewers to make them feel connected to the project. We give the teams updates the same day that we give the client team, maybe not in the form of a formal report, but just to let the team know, hey, this is where we are in the case development. We think this project is going to continue for X number of weeks. We appreciate all of the diligence that you guys are focused on this case, and we want to make sure that you're committed to the project, keep giving us good work product. And you may see, oftentimes you see some rising stars in that process. I mean, if you work with people for several weeks, you're going to notice, boy, you have a couple of standout people here. Maybe they can take on some more responsibility, and then those people will evolve to team leaders. Um, One, they're recognized with more responsibility because they have good work product, and two, they're going to earn a higher pay rate. And most people are very interested in that. And They're pleased to be recognized and happy to take on more responsibility. And I think that means a lot. The IST is unique in that instance. My experience contracting with a law firm, that was not the case. We definitely had team leaders, but their pay scale wasn't any different than the rest of the team. And so there wasn't a compensation incentive to want to take on more responsibility. Um, I think that's a key component into why our people, they like working for IST and they want to stay. They see, oh, I can build some momentum here. I could build a career. Some of those people could even translate to permanent employees, and that's certainly not the case a lot of other places. They may clearly spell out, hey, you are contract. You will remain contract. Like, don't try and interact with HR or tell your manager that, you're interested in a permanent job. That's not going to happen. But the IST recognizes talent. And if you see a need, you're a talented individual, I think you could add value to our team on a permanent basis. That's a possibility. And they understand that and appreciate it.
And that has to be a huge way to make sure we're efficiently helping clients, because if you're bringing on a new team and you already know who the team leaders are going to be because you've worked with them in the past, you've already identified
Absolutely.
the other reviewers, you're going to be
Yep.
able to know, I need to focus on these 10 new ones, but
Yes.
these 15, they know what's going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll have team leads that have worked with us many times before, contract attorneys who've worked with us many times before. And so you can identify those individual strengths. You'll have a project come in and you'll say, hey, this team lead is really excellent at this. Let's get this person. Or this is an attorney who is very efficient, can get through a lot of material. We have a short deadline. Let's get her and see if she's available. So it works out well for all parties involved, really.
Excellent. It really seems like the key to a great, efficient managed review case is having great processes, great technology, but more importantly, having the right people and being
Right,
able to
people.
identify and manage them.
Definitely. Definitely. Managed review is more than just the work itself, the project. You are also managing people when you're managing these teams. And sometimes you find out this person really wasn't a good fit for this particular project. I thought she was going to be great based on the resume and the past experience. And then once that person was into it, just like, no, this is
Right.
not working. Let's switch gears. And so, then you pull some other person from the pool who fits right in, and oh, this is much better fit. But going forward, maybe that person had strengths in another area, but just wasn't a strength for this particular project. So you remain on the roster, and when that fit comes along, then we can slot that person in another place.
But luckily, you're able to identify them because you have the tools and the QC processes and all that in place. So it's not like you discover 3 weeks into a 4 week project, oh, this person wasn't the right fit. You're able to see that day one based on the work they're doing.
Yes, yes, we are. We are most of the time. Every now
Right.
and then, you have a
Maybe day
person like,
three.
no, you're not going to work. Yeah.
Right. Excellent. Well, this has been fabulous and so educational. I just wanted to ask you one last question. What's the biggest change you see in document review in the next 3 to 5 years?
um, Probably just continued technology development and artificial intelligence. I
Hmm.
think we've come a long way with that already in technology assisted review, and reducing volumes of data is increasingly more important all the time. With especially in the pandemic, you had other mediums of communication invented because everyone was remote. So you have Slack and Teams and all these other ways that people communicate, and it really adds to the volume of data that you're dealing with. So you have to constantly, change technology to cull that information down and process, target what it is you're really focused on. Um, there's development in technology that you can even do that with contracts. I think Relativity purchased another company called Heretic, and Heretic is a platform that really focuses on like contractual terms, and you can look at sections of contracts and associate them with a coding tag. Once you select the tag, it will take you to that section of the document. It's almost like a hyperlink, so it can show you the big picture if you want, or just a little bit. But I mean, that's something that years ago didn't even exist. I mean, if you wanted to analyze contracts, you were doing it yourself, not conceptual artificial intelligence, maybe just keywords, but whole concepts can be, you take one concept and find 100 other documents that discuss this topic by paragraph. It's amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, the influx of information now is just
Mm-hmm.
uncomprehendable how much information is required in these cases. So anything that allows us to intelligently cull it down to a reasonable amount of information for somebody to look at, put eyes on, and really
Mm-hmm.
confirm, yes, this is what we're looking for is amazing.
That's true. And clients are a lot more savvy now too. There are shorter deadlines. Clients have tighter budgets, and time is important. If you can reduce the amount of time it takes to analyze that data, cull it down, and to get it to something that's really workable, that's really important, because every hour costs, and they want to know they're getting the best value for that time that they're paying for.
Absolutely. I like what you talked about there on time too. Obviously, reduced time is reduced cost, and that's important. But the reduced time is a bigger thing because you can always find more money, but you can't ever find more time. So
And
being
find more
able to
time.
do it faster is hugely important.
Right,
Excellent. Well,
right.
this has been just an absolute pleasure. So thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
Excellent. Once again, thank you for listening to the Outside In podcast. If you enjoyed listening to Sherry Godfrey and you want to learn more about how IST is helping clients in the litigation support world, please subscribe.